Welcome to Make Things Happen with Diana Pagano. I came from struggle, living life on survival mode, and later found myself living in that same vicious cycle. Life is meant to be so much more than settling. Are you ready to stop dreaming for what could be and turn those dreams into reality? I thought so. Well, get ready to live life on your terms. Hello and welcome to Make Things Happen podcast with Diana Pagano. On today's episode, it's part 2 with Dr. Richard Bandler. We had such an amazing conversation that we had to do 2 parts. If you haven't seen part 1, that's okay. Pause this video. I encourage you to watch part 1 first, and then you want to come back to part 2 where we get into some really deeper conversations about just aligning ourselves with what we truly want. If you're not happy with any part of your life, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you're probably doing something wrong. And I know that might be hard to swallow. Some of you might be saying, I've done everything. There's always more that you can be doing. And it starts with you. It starts with how you're thinking inside. It's not about doing more. It's about believing more. And that's actually what I talk about in my book, The More Mindset. There is a link below to make sure you grab your copy. And I'm so honored that Dr. Richard Bandler endorsed my book of The More Mindset. All the tools and strategies that I have used to help not only other people that I've coached as an action-driven mindset coach, but also my own life. Well, it keeps you looking young. It keeps you feeling young when you're still doing something that you're really passionate about. And it definitely is obvious for sure, more ways than one.
Yeah, one of the worst things that I see in my work is because I work with a lot of athletes, and is when they get to the point in their career where their body is not as capable. I mean, oddly enough, they're getting older and older and still being able to function because, we have better treatments for ailments, and they stop drugging athletes to get them to function. They used to take a lot of steroids and all this crap that they took, which would poison them so they'd get old faster than they should. But, there hits a point in time where, a football player or a baseball player, golf, at least they have older tournaments. But, they don't have a seniors football league and a seniors baseball league where they can function when they feel like they have to give up the professional sport. A lot of them switch to another sport, but there's a point in their life where they're giving up the thing that they like the most. I had a baseball player that was injured, very young, but very good. And he hurt his arm. He was a pitcher. And they were still paying him his salary. He was making millions of dollars. But he was depressed. He came to me because he was so depressed because he wasn't playing baseball. And the truth is, he needed to play baseball, but he didn't need to play in the major leagues, And actually, we did some x-rays and found out where the damage was. And I got him to start to learn to throw differently so he wouldn't injure his shoulder when he was throwing. He started throwing at a slightly sidearm instead of straight over the top, just a little bit. We found the perfect angle, and his coach retrained him, and he started throwing faster balls than he ever did. But when he was stuck into depression, it was because he had to give up the idea of doing what he'd spent his whole life loving. And when that's true, people shouldn't have to give up doing what they love, and people really should find more things that they love in life.
And that's, I think, the way to not be depressed is what can you replace it with, right?
Well, yeah, but instead of just replace it, you should have more than one thing.
Variety.
Variety. Yeah. I mean, somebody asked me, they said, what do you do when you're not doing NLP? And I like to paint, and I like to play piano. There's all kinds of things I like to do. I just sent 3 paintings to a gallery in Florida.
No way. I did not know
Well,
that.
they saw them online.
Okay.
Somebody put pictures of mine online. They were here and snapped some pictures. And people are always putting everything online. And the gallery contacted me and said they were interested. So.
Oh, I love that.
We'll see whether they're still interested when they get them.
So right now, people listening, right? I know that one of the things that people think is motivation, has to always be at a 10. And I'm always like, you do the thing you have to do and just you going through the motions. But from a NLP perspective, you talked about a lot of different things like, well, what are you doing? What's next? What are you thinking?
Well, yeah, but everything needs an on button and an off button. And our neurology and our homeostatic system is designed to wind up and then to wind down. And most people do not spend enough time winded down. They wind themselves up, and whether it's positively or negatively, they stay wound up too much of the time. And one of the nice things about doing hypnosis is just the effect that putting people into alpha states, and that, I do it a lot in my seminars. You realize that I spend
Right.
a lot of time getting people to be relaxed so that I can teach them, so that they can get wound up and do something, so that they'll turn off at the end of it and relax. That if a body is constantly in motion, it just creates too much stress. And the nervous system isn't designed that way. Our nervous system is designed to light up and then to turn down. It's supposed to balance itself. And that balance, has to be something that you can achieve whether you're awake, really alert, meditating. Not everything has to be deep relaxation, but you need to have a variety of states so that you can move between them. And there needs to be a pause in life sometimes.
Absolutely, because then you can
I don't think
burn out.
some people pause very well.
That's true. I've been there once upon a time, just completely spreading myself thin, Richard. And I'm like, why? And it makes sense because you said you don't make good decisions when you're in a bad state. And that's exactly right. That's why there is that turning yourself off. But what's a quick tool that somebody can do out of all the 5 that I'm thinking of right now, which I don't want to say, that someone can help or boost their motivation? Let's pretend that they did turn off and they are relaxed. Maybe they're too relaxed on the couch.
Well, but see, that's not turning off. That's vegetating. That's a different thing.
True.
That's not becoming so calm that when you start to think, you make better, clearer, crisper thoughts. And to me, making clear, crisp thoughts is how you motivate yourself. You build desire. Anticipation is a powerful human state. That when we anticipate something, that's the moment before things happen. Even when you go to pick up a glass, you're neurologically designed so that you move towards it. Every movement you get closer to the glass, your hand goes faster. And just before you touch, you anticipate that touch so that when your fingers touch, you switch every muscle and move back the other way, because it's a different muscle set that's going to do that. And our neurology is designed to anticipate things. And it is that state of anticipation. The perfect kiss starts with anticipating that kiss. And your ability to anticipate something adjusts your neurology. So when you anticipate doing something, you look at yourself succeeding at it, you anticipate doing it, you anticipate starting it. You can take that feeling and crank it up in your body on purpose. You make bigger pictures so that you move faster. You pull them closer so the feeling gets stronger. All of the things that constitute thinking on purpose, right? Whether they're kinesthetic, visual, or auditory, and giving yourself good commands. Commands are in English determined by downward inflection of the voice. Statements go across, questions go up. And when you give yourself, like start now, get up, let's get going, all of those things. Because if you go, let's get going, it just doesn't work.
No.
You need that downward inflection and internal dialogue, having control over it, how loud it is, how close it is, finding the perfect place to talk to yourself where it really affects your feelings is important. It's not that it's one thing, it's a combination of things.
It's a combination of things. And I love that the anticipation and the desire, that 2 things that really stick out to me is that's huge, because that is the anticipation of what you're about. Even just like today, I'm anticipating this to be an amazing day or an amazing week. Just telling yourself this makes me feel good, and then it makes me feel like in that state, just that alone. But yes, you can turn it on and do something more.
Well, as soon as you anticipate having a great day, then you start thinking about what's going to be in it.
True. It's true. I anticipated having Richard Bandler on my podcast.
Happy day, you don't make good plans.
That's true. That's true. Like when I anticipated that you were going to be on my podcast, and I had the good feeling, and I visualized us seeing each other and laughing, and look at me now. We made it happen. So Richard, I don't know if there's a time that you could share, that you feel comfortable sharing for those listening now that feel like, giving up, that maybe can give them hope? Is there a personal struggle that you went through that you can share that changed, something that where they can feel that maybe it's possible for me too? I mean, if what we cover doesn't do it for them, is there anything you can share to kind of give some?
Well, I've had myriads of personal struggles that not the worst of which has been physically suffering a stroke. When my first love of my life died in 2004, I was devastated by it, and it affected me too much, and I didn't take good enough care of myself, and I paid the price. And then I had so many negative things around me. Doctors telling me that I wasn't going to get better. I'd had a deep vein thrombosis from flying, and I got a blood clot in my leg, and it went to my lungs. I got embolisms, and then it went to my brain, and and it crippled me, and it was very difficult. And in a wheelchair, this is the worst place to try to stay physically fit. I gained a bunch of weight, and it required that I change everything that I thought about, the way I was living, so that I could start to move in the right direction. And luckily, I got together with a good woman who's also a good doctor. That's a great combination.
Of course.
He helped me to get healthier. I started exercising in ways I never had. I taught myself to walk again. And, I take better care of myself than I did, which is always a good idea. The older you get, the more care you have to take.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's just like an old car. You have to be careful with it and keep it oiled and clean and all of that stuff so that it works better. And, and I built a better life for myself than I've ever had.
That's awesome. So you really had the odds going against you. I mean, I'm sure we don't have enough hours to talk about all the things I'm sure that you could share that you've gone through, and you're not off limits. Like, it doesn't discriminate, the things, life happens, and your health and all these things. So good for you.
Becoming a public figure also makes you a target. It makes you a target for lawsuits. It makes you a target for all kinds of stuff. And and it's just part of the cost of doing business. You either get emotionally invested in it, or you think it's part of the cost of doing business. That if you travel all the time and teach, there's going to be wear and tear on you.
Absolutely.
You have to go to the airport, and they are going to change flights and cancel them, and it's frustrating. But the question is, what can you do about it? And
what's next?
Yeah, what's next?
What's
where
next?
do I go? Where's the next flight? How do I get to my hotel? I did a conference one time in New Orleans, and had hundreds and hundreds of people coming. It was a brand new hotel. They opened this Hilton that was supposed to be the showcase of all Hiltons, and I got there. My plane was delayed, and when I got to the desk, the guy said, "We sold your room." And I said, I have hundreds of people showing up tomorrow, and you're going to tell me I can't stay here?
Oh my goodness.
And and the guy said, well, he said, we're completely sold out. He said, if you'd have been here by 6 o'clock, we could hold your reservation. And I said, the hotel gave me the room for putting the conference here. They promised it to me. I said, you need to find some kind of a room. Right. And the guy was really snotty with me. Oh. And he finally said to me, he goes, well, we have one little tiny room. And he gave me a key, and I walked over, and I got in the elevator, and Conrad Hilton was in it. This is when the Earth Coincidence Control Center starts to work in your favor.
Wow.
Told him what happened, and he went back to the lobby and made them give me a big suite. And it turned out they had suites.
Oh gosh, they did.
Turned out they were just lying.
That's amazing. Talk about being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, well, when you get in the right state, the right things come.
I love that you said this. When you get into the right state, it's like we're all energy, right? And things will just come and surprise people. That's one of the things that people always say. Like, I lose my SHIT, but I need to snap out of it, or else what's going to come next? Not what I want to see. So,
look, the universe itself. They used to say that the atom was the smallest thing. And then they would tell you it had three parts. So that was always a little contradictory. Now, and we live in the world of quantum physics, we know that there is no things, that it's all vibration. And so vibration becomes what makes matter. And in the human domain, the frequencies that you vibrate determine what's going to go on around you. It's as simple as when you're in a good mood and you smile at people, they will have a tendency to smile back. And if they're not, if they're just a cranky and they just look at you and like that, the question is, are you going to give into their vibrations? Or are you going to make them give into yours? And sometimes it'll be a draw, and sometimes they'll start to smile. But you can't give up your feelings just because other people are cranky. And the more you vibrate and unify your field to aim in a direction, the more the universe will line up with you. And to me, that's just simple physics. My background is more in science and math than anything else. And it may sound like a cosmic belief, but I think the cosmos is in fact the most miraculous thing of all. When you look through the pictures that the Hubble telescope took at birthplace of galaxies and all of the amazing things, that are distances that we can't even conceive of, all swirling around for our benefit. That at this moment in time, we're, as far as we know, the peak of consciousness. And our desire to go to the stars, I think, is part of the whole plan. That we're supposed to go to the stars and fill up all these empty planets in the universe. We're going to figure out how to get through space rather than across it someday. Yeah. All of these things will happen. When my grandfather was young, they told him that if man was meant to fly, he would have wings. And what happened? People built airplanes with wings.
Wow.
They weren't wrong. They said, don't try it. And there were people that tried it, and now there are planes all over the place flying around, and helicopters and everything else.
Yeah, we evolve as humans. I mean,
our ability to conceive of things and to believe in things, it is through imagination that reality gets built and changed. At one time, there were no buildings, there was no internet, there was no communication, there were no telephones. All of those things started out as ideas because people believed it was possible, they conceived of it, and now it's real. Reality is built out of ideas, not the inverse.
Not the other way around. It's true. And when you say anything that you actually experience, right, Richard, in real life, it's because it's happened once already in the mind.
Right. Everything I did with all of my clients over the years, I was told couldn't be done. Right. And I just didn't accept that belief. I believed that if people could get screwed up in a few minutes by falling in a river and get a phobia of water, that it should only take a few minutes to change it. And that seems to me more reasonable than it's fixed in some kind of mental cement that will stay with them for the rest of their life.
So the ideas that you have happen first, and then the reality happens second, right?
In other words, we conceived that we could build a model of language that would be recursive, that would be able to get people's model of the world inside their head to change, and then we built it. And then once we built it, it changed our ideas as well. And we found more and more ways to augment it and make it work faster, better, quicker. And,
it's like that saying, when you build it, they will come. Kind of, right?
And that's what happened. I had no idea that NLP would become so popular. Nobody liked the name to start with.
Really?
Right, because it wasn't like a therapy name. It wasn't an ism. It wasn't a gestaltism or a transactional analysism or something like that. I actually linguistically was very careful to pick something that required that it become an activity, not a religion.
That's Neuro-Linguistic programming. You wanted it to not have, exactly, sound like a religion. And a lot of people didn't believe in it. Even to this day, you have some people. I mean, it's a lot more popular now, I'm sure, than it was when you first created this technology.
When I first started, people kept asking me what he did. Originally, we just called it meta model, and one day I had to explain to somebody what I did for a living, and I just looked down on the floor of my car, and there were 3 books: a neurology book, a programming manual for a PDP 1134A, and, and a neurology book, and Jim Grinder's linguistic book. And I just simply went neuro-linguistic programming and put the three things together. And I went and had a sign made, and they goofed, and it said nervo-linguistic programming. So on my door of my office, it said nervo-linguistic programming for a couple of, and then finally they made me a new sign, and I turned it around.
Goodness. Wow, nervo. Yeah, that would have been an interesting one if we left it there, if you left it like that.
Well, initially, a lot of people went, it's not very feeling, it's not this, it's not that. That, we were in the midst of the human potential movement. And the trouble with human potential is that it wasn't moving, it was just potential. Hugging trees didn't make people smarter.
No.
That, there were all these goofy psychodrama things, all these things that people were doing that they may have been fun and, they may have been very cathartic, but catharting doesn't get rid of human pain, it reinforces it. That if you keep reliving a bad event, it just gets worse. It reinforces it. We know this neurologically, it's so. And I was looking for neurological answers to questions so that I could get results. That's why I was so interested in plasticity of the brain, Paul Bach-y-Rita's work, Moshe Feldenkrais's work. Moshe Feldenkrais got the crippled to walk and paralyzed people to move and all of these things that were contrary to everything in medicine. There's a film of him somewhere. I don't know where it is now. The Feldenkrais Society probably has it, where he took a woman that was so paralyzed that when she walked, her knees rubbed together, and they were talking about she came in on a walker just ever so slowly, like totally bent over and crooked, and he put her up on a table and had her lay flat with her knees bent, put his hands between her knees like this, and had her squeeze, and then put his hands on the outside and had her push, and kept doing that. And the whole time he started humming a waltz, and he would chat and hum the waltz and chat and hum the waltz. And after 20 minutes, he swung her around, stood her up, humming the waltz, and started dancing with her across the floor. Wow. And her legs were straight as straight could be. And they were talking about cutting her tendons, which would have crippled her for life.
Wow.
To keep the damage in her knees down because her knees were getting so damaged. And there was a doctor in the audience. He looked at his friend and said, because I'm going to go home and tear up my medical license. He just couldn't explain it. It was just beyond comprehension to him. And,
there was a lot of people like that, right, Richard? That were just absolutely.
And what I considered my job would be to find them, learn as much as I could from them while they were alive. Right. And make it so that more people could do more things and had the same beliefs. Moshe Feldenkrais wasn't a doctor, he was a physicist. And he understood, he even designed a calculus of movement that was used by NASA to make space shots. He's one of the people whose name is on the patent for Freon. He had a long and interesting life and did all kinds of amazing things. And I believe is one of the people that's massively underappreciated when it comes to heading us in the right direction towards learning to master our bodies and our own healing.
Wow. It's amazing what our bodies, our minds, our brains can do.
No limit whatsoever.
No limit whatsoever. So anyone listening now, whatever you're going through right now, personally, maybe with your health, maybe with, your family, whatever you're going through, or in business, you really have everything right now, the way that God created us. I don't care who your God is, but how God created each and every single one of us. This is a man that co-founded NLP. There is so much behind neuro-linguistic programming that, it's life-changing when you learn how to take the wheel and start designing your life, start thinking differently. Like Richard said, thinking on purpose. When you change the thinking, it changes how you feel. It creates a different state. And then you say, what's next? Like Richard said, it changes everything. So is there anything, Richard, that NLP can't do to help someone with whatever they're going through?
Well, I'm sure there is. I just haven't found it yet.
Can you help him win the lottery? I'm just kidding.
Hasn't done that for me yet.
Let us know if you have a story if you won the lottery.
I, if,
Actually, you know
if
what?
I find that one, I'm keeping it.
You know what? I'm going to share something for 30 seconds. Richard, I've done this. When I first met my husband, he thought I was a little creepy, but when I remember going to the casino, because we would go to like some conference, and if it happened to have a casino, we would go there, especially after NLP. So, and it was just about the mind and how, I played with this. Richard, I would play with it. I would take some chips and I'm like, I'm going to go to the roulette table. Till this day, that's what I like doing. I'll go there and I'll bet the whole thing on red or the whole thing on black. But I have to feel a certain way. I have to anticipate it. And I'm telling you, this is going to sound really creepy for people like, oh, you can actually win the lottery. I'm not saying you can win the lottery, but hey, you know what? You can increase your chances, gosh darn it. And I did it. I put everything in red, and then I said, I'm going to double it, and then I'm going to triple it, and I'm going to put it all in black. So it might sound funny. It's a funny game that I did. So yeah, I think the mind is very powerful. The energy that we exude, whether the doctor told me this couldn't happen, and I told him, well, watch me, I am going to come back. I anticipated something different. I imagined my test results looking different on paper. I imagined the feeling. I imagined going down on my knees saying, thank you, God. And I mean, there's something to be said about that. This is no longer a coincidence. So yes, anybody listening right now, you can change your life. I mean, Richard explained something that he struggled with, really a major thing that set him back in his life, and he came back a winner. He's coached many people. We have stories. We can sit here, too many stories to even count, of transformation. So I'm really excited about this episode, and I'm so grateful that, Richard, that you decided to join me in this conversation. And I know that so many people are going to get so much out of this. Before I let you go, because I feel like we can be there till the sun goes up, there's so much to talk about. What is something, if you don't mind sharing, what is something that maybe you, or something about your routine? Is there a routine? Like, do you have a routine that you do to maintain a strong mindset, or I call it mindset, a strong mind, a healthy body? It sounds like you've already gone through so much. I think so much is habitual for you that maybe you don't even call it a routine, but is there anything you can share?
It's hard to say I have a routine, but I relax when I can. When I work, I work full tilt boogie. That I enjoy a lot of things. I enjoy my dogs. I enjoy painting. I enjoy playing the piano. I'm not very good at it, but I enjoy it.
Hey, as long as you enjoy it.
Well, it is. I've made close to 100 audio recordings with music in the background. They're trance music for the most part, and that some of them have as many as 30 tracks, and and verbal things over the top of them. And I enjoyed the process. And there's a point where when you're creating things, that there's always going to be moments of frustration, some moments where you don't know what to do next, and where you have to get ideas. And I find that if you go into the right state, things flow into you. And that if you're not in the right state, then you need to put it out of your mind for a while and come back to it.
I love
all
that.
Of the other books up there on that shelf.
Yes.
Those are all books that I've written. They're all separate. They're different books. They're not the same book. They're all different. And they all started with an idea of something that I wanted to accomplish. That's why they're very different from each other. Some of them I co-authored, some of them I authored by myself. When John Grinder and I worked together, we did 6 or 7 books. And over the years, I've written a lot of books, because to me, when you have a purpose and you become fascinated by it, and you let your whole neurology get into it, you manifest and accomplish in this planet. Whether you're a songwriter, or you're a musician, or you're a poet, or whether you're somebody who's choreographing dance, or you're a podcaster, you're manifesting something that you can look back on and know that you have a volume of information that's now available to the world. You have achievement. And some people, that achievement comes out in books and music and other things. And some people, it's just their personal life. A lot of my clients, it's just their personal life. But if you create good children, good friends, good family, and don't sweat the small stuff.
Don't sweat the
Big
small stuff.
secret. Don't sweat the small stuff. And most of it is. Even if it seems big at the time, shrink it down.
Shrink it down and make it black and white really, really fast. And it'll get out of your psyche. One thing and I'll probably circle back, but one thing, where do you see AI? I know AI has taken over, Richard, so many industries, and it's been a tool, and sometimes it's just a supplement, it's like an add-on. But where do you see AI taking a place in NLP in this industry?
Well, I'm constantly getting programmers coming up and telling me they're an AI expert, and I don't think anybody is, to tell you the truth. It's too young,
Right.
you know, and
I
that,
agree.
everything I do could be done by AI, and I don't believe it, not even for a second. AI doesn't have the ability to anticipate. It has the ability to predict. That's different.
Mm.
It can read nonverbal cues. They'll put cameras on computers that can detect your pupil focus and all that. But putting all of it together in a way that has the experience of somebody who's actually changed people's lives for the better or worse is not something AI has done. And right now it's in its infancy. It
Mm.
lies, it cheats, it dreams, it does all of these wacky ass stuff.
It
It
does.
makes up research to support stuff. It's in its infancy, and all it is a faster way of being a computer. It's not artificial intelligence. I think is a misnomer. Artificial, yes, intelligent sometimes, and it may be able to draw all kinds of logos faster than somebody else, but to tell you the truth, I'm just not that impressed yet. And a lot of people want me, to give up my intellectual property rights so that they can program things, and I'm sure somebody will just do it anyway.
True.
But it's not going to replace me. I'm not worried. I won't be out of a job. We're not going to run out of stupid people anytime soon.
Yes, and AI is a human-driven machine. So, like, even just thinking like, how smart is the person doing the thing? Because I do believe, I believe there's a missing element already with like the human experience. Just being, you can't replace a human, and like you said, I think it's too in early stages. So
Well, again, that depends upon the human.
true.
That to me, what we need to do is to use all of these kinds of tools to educate people to be smarter. When people make better decisions, AI will make better decisions. And AI is not worried about being happy or not, and we all should be. There's energy in the universe that isn't a function of computation and digital zeros and ones,
Mm.
and that's the magical nature of the universe itself. And magic is alive and well in the universe.
Mm.
People are blind to it every day. They don't see the magistry. They look at the stars at night and they don't go, "How miraculous is this?" And they don't look at quantum mechanics and see how miraculous it is. They don't realize there are 50 trillion cells, all coordinated, functioning all the time, regenerating itself. They don't look at that as utter and complete magic. We
Absolute
don't know
miracles.
why it does all of that. We can explain it, but that's real different
That is.
than than looking at it and embracing the magic and feeling it with every fiber of your soul. It's a
Yes.
magical universe we live in. Tapping into that magic gives you a more magical life. That's why red came up when it did.
That's true. You mentioned how miraculous we are as humans, and I think so many people, entrepreneurs, working on their business, or doesn't matter really what background you're in, and there's strategies. They spend so much time in the boardrooms, looking at strategy, figuring out how to make things happen, and very little time inwardly on like how you were built, and the tools and techniques that already live inside you.
Good name for it, boardroom.
And it's an old school name. Who says boardrooms anymore? Conference rooms where you go together with your leadership team to figure out how to increase sales. If someone's struggling right now in their business, what would you say is the number one thing they should look at? Should they look at their sales team?
Well, they should look, if you're not selling things, then looking at the sales team. It's not increasing the sales team, it's their close ratio that's the problem. That when I do business consulting, I'm always trying to figure out how to do a lot more with a lot less.
Hmm.
Human efficiency is determined by the inside of the person, not by the outside. And if you clean up the inside of a human being and make them more efficient, they'll do their job better. But if it's a big mess and it's too hard to clean up, you need to replace them. It's like any other part that doesn't work.
It's so
Or
true.
anything. If a part doesn't work, if a person doesn't work, then you need to replace them. In Europe, they have a very stringent laws about firing people. I was surprised. One of my friends was consulting at a company over there, and it was almost like they literally couldn't fire people, even for stealing. They had to pay them a
Wow.
5-year salary and all of this nonsense. It was ridiculous.
I thought we had it ridiculous sometimes.
no, it is ridiculous, but not as ridiculous as some of these European countries.
Yeah.
And to me, when the government sticks its nose in things, they screw everything up because the decisions are made by people that don't have at stake what's at stake. I mean, politicians that want to raise taxes, aren't thinking that if more people have money, the economy will move faster. It's not how much money is in an economy; it's how quickly it moves through it that determines,
True.
things. It's like, Donald Trump has been very good for a lot of things in the world, and yet a lot of people object to it, but they sound like idiots most of the time.
I agree.
I'm against ending, violence in the streets of Washington D.C. That's just a derangement syndrome. You can credit for what he accomplishes and be upset about what doesn't work.
True.
And that's what legitimate people do. And I find people are dealing with politics like it's a cult or a religion.
Oh, it's gone
The
way
right or the
out of
left, they're both fanatics, and I don't like either.
it's gotten way too out of control. I love what you said. Sometimes you just
Arguing about who's president when we have one. We should argue about it when the elections come up.
there you go. When you can do something
And,
about it.
Biden was president. I didn't like what he did, but there isn't anything I could do about it, so I'm not going to feel bad about it.
Right.
And,
I'm just gonna go vote differently when that time comes.
yes, and apparently I wasn't the only one.
That's interesting. So I love what you said earlier about replacing people that just like car parts, you have to replace it. I did an episode earlier this season, and it was about a lot of business leaders make this common mistake is that, oh, so and so has so much knowledge about the business, and I'm always like, I get irked because I'm like, what good is knowledge if they're not bringing results? And so I love that you said that it's the engineering inside to get better results. And I think that that's a lot of mistakes that people make is that they're afraid to fire people. Maybe sometimes, for whatever reason. I do believe in like sustaining your quality people, right? That are producing results. And I think there's a lot of people listening now that own their own business or are working or business leaders or whoever they are really, that maybe might struggle with that sometimes is that they're seeing people, oh, well, they're really nice and they're good for the culture. And there are some key people that should be, promoted and moved on further because they get it. They align with the culture and they're actually bringing results. But when they're not bringing results, I always think about it like, look underneath the hood in your sales department. What's happening in your sales team?
Not just in your sales department, but across the board.
Across the board.
When there are people that aren't getting it so that your company runs more efficiently, the amount of waste in businesses because they have all of these levels of employees and there's a lot of redundancy that I got hired once many years ago to go into a company that made hard drives because when they go down the assembly line, by the time they got to the end, I think it was something ridiculous, like 0.04% of them were working. All the rest of them had to be disassembled and redone. And when I went and got a job and worked on the assembly line to try to figure out what was going on. And it turned out that if they were going up the assembly line, they had a quality control guy that would come by. And if it wasn't working, you would be punished. And what happened is everybody got it one that was good, kept it under the counter. And when the quality control guy, they gave them the same one every time. So everything was moving up the line, not working. And it was because they thought by punishing people, they could get people to do a good job. And it was the contrary. They should have rewarded them for finding the bad ones. And the more bad ones they found, the less bad ones would have gone up the rest of the line to being a final product that didn't work. And they had bad thinking. And, the guy that was in charge of it kept saying to me, look, I've been doing this for 30 years. And I kept saying, yes. And every year you get worse results. You're not going, what's wrong with me? You're going, what's wrong with them? You can't hire good people anymore. That was his solution, was to go. He kept blaming other people for making a bad decision. And as soon as they changed it, everything started working. And, whether
it's a level of thinking at the end of the day.
Well, it is. It's like, where's the cog in the wheel that's not working? And if you find the cog in the wheel and you make it efficient, the brain is the same way. That as soon as I find out what's clogging things up, I can get it to turn around. I can take an obsessive compulsive person who is ruining their life and make them so that they become cheerfully happy and a very efficient employee. Being obsessive isn't a bad thing. The question is, what are you obsessing about and how are you obsessing? And if you change the way in which people are obsessing and what they're obsessing about, they become a functional human being. And corporations are no different. Businesses are no different. That when you have people that are doing things for their own sake, not for the sake of the overall organism of the company. Company is like an organism. Everything has to work cooperatively to produce a result.
Right. And I always say,
it's wasting time.
I always think about if something's not working and you have your leadership team, it's look at your leadership team, because everything trickles down based on the leadership and how their level of thinking. Who's going to follow someone that has a level of thinking that everything's hard, or this doesn't exist, or you can't find good people, or nothing's ever easy, right? The states follow, like you mentioned.
Lead by example.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Richard. This was amazing having you here. Thank you for your presence. And I hope everybody here found it very insightful, because I think even I, that have known you for years and gone through your seminars, and I continue to just expand my level of thinking in my brain. There's always like that movie you love so much and you watch it for the third time and you're like, wait, I didn't realize this the first 2 times I've watched it. There's always something more to learn, and we have to expand our minds and constantly be learning. I always say I'm going to be that 95-year-old woman one day at a conference learning something about the brain. So is there anything that you want to leave people listening into right now? If you can say a quick word, and make sure you say "Make Things Happen" in there, because this is a Make Things Happen podcast.
Yes, if you find that you're not enjoying yourself, you're probably doing the wrong thing.
True. There you go. And change your level of thinking. So where could we find your books? If anybody wants to sign up for one of your seminars, or one of your many books, which I highly recommend.
Bandler.com, the NLP bookstore, NLPinternational.com, and NLP Eternal has my videos and audios, and that's a subscription thing. And Amazon has a lot of my books, and a lot of them that went out of print, we're now slowly putting back in print.
Awesome.
During COVID, 2 of the companies went out of business. And a lot of the books were lost for a while, but they're coming back slowly.
Amazing.
Plus, we're getting better translations, especially in French and Spanish, and master practitioners are now translating them. So we're getting better translations of the books as well.
Oh, that's amazing. So we will definitely have the links. Make sure that you check those links out. And I'm telling you from experience, the seminars that Richard Bandler teaches with his team is next level, and you have to sign up for it. It will absolutely change your life. It's bigger than just sitting here and listening to the podcast.
PureNLP.com puts on the seminars.
PureNLP.com to sign up for the seminars. Amazing. Thank you so much, Richard. Can I have you say "Make Things Happen"?
Make things happen.
Woo! I hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you subscribe below so that you can get notified on future episodes.